Well, hello there, and welcome to another tank review. I'm CornyBros, and today we're looking at the A.43 Black Prince, 5.7 rank 4 British heavy tank. And now, as with all reviews, if you want to see a specific portion of this review, those will all be timestamped down below. So feel free to click off to whatever part you want to watch the most, but if you want to hear the garage portion, let's get started. So the Black Prince is kind of the last infantry tank that the British Army used, or well, tried to use, or designed, I guess. Never exited prototype stage. It's basically a continuation of the Churchill series of tanks. The idea of an infantry tank was it was supposed to support infantry. It was supposed to, they're all relatively slow, and they kind of move with the infantry as they advance and do their thing. Then you have the cruiser style tanks, which are more like your cavalry, more like your mobile tank, kind of more like what I guess American doctrine would be with like Shermans and things like that. That's more like the cruisers. The Churchills are infantry support tanks. Generally have a lot of armor, generally have pretty armor penetrating guns, or pretty good guns at least. But like I said, the Black Prince never exited prototype stage. 6 prototypes were built. None of them obviously brought into service, because then you have things like the Centurion that come along, and tanks that did what the things the Black Prince did, but did it better, or did it faster, or whatever the reasons were. But we have it here in War Thunder, and like I said before, it's a 5.7 battle rating British premium tank. Now, when it first was introduced, it was a 6.0, right? And I actually scrapped a portion of this review because it changed to 5.7 very recently. Now, premium tank, you get all the premium rewards, which is pretty cool, but we're not really going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the machine as a whole. So, Black Prince is 50 tons, which is heavy. It's not too heavy, but it's heavy, that's for sure. It's especially heavy when you look at the engine, 350 horsepower at 2,200 RPM. Now, it was thought of in the design stage of the Black Prince's life to give this thing a 600 horsepower engine, which would have been very good, but that wasn't what they decided to do. They decided to stick with the 350 horsepower engine, and we're left with a machine that can manage 17.2 kilometers an hour, and it won't go much faster than that. It's monstrously slow. It's underpowered. The engine just cannot move this tank very well. But there's kind of a reason. I mean, besides the engine being kind of shrimpy, the armor is pretty heavy. So, that's pretty cool. But maximum inclination, 41 degrees, goes up 41 degree slope. That's pretty standard for heavy tanks. Turret rotation speed, 13.5 degrees a second. Not great, but perfectly adequate, perfectly acceptable. That'll get the job done. Vertical guidance, 10 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation. Not exactly a tall tank, but it does still manage the 10 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty cool. Especially with this gun. This is a very good gun, so having good gun handling is important. So, all this brings us to the armor, which is kind of what the Churchill tanks were needed to be known for, was their armor profiles. Now, when I flash it up, you can see that it has kind of an interesting layout. Now, the front of the tank, the front plate right here, 152 millimeters. You'll also note that there's additional 152 millimeter front plates right behind the tracks right here, and there's a reason for that, and we'll talk about that when we get to the layout on the inside. But 152 millimeters, you have the lower sort of plate is covered. It's 139 millimeters, but it is sloped, so it's about 160. So in essence, this lower plate is thicker than this upper plate, just because of the angle and stuff. You have this kind of sloped back plate, 57 millimeters, not very good, but it is sloped back at 70 degrees, so it's going to be a tough nut to crack anyway. You have the machine gun port, 140. Yeah, it's going to be kind of a weak spot. The point is, if you can hit this machine gun port usually, you might as well just shoot right down the center of the tank. Because when this tank isn't angled, some of the guns it runs into can give it serious problems. Like Tigers at medium to close range, King Tigers absolutely, things like that. They'll give this tank trouble. IS-2 will give it trouble, but most tanks at its tier, at 5.7 or so, plus or minus about 0.3, will really struggle with this armor profile for a number of reasons. Now the turret face, you have this 50 millimeter sort of shield right here. you'll notice that this gun mantlet right here is 152 millimeters, and it does overlap a little bit with the shield. Then you have the face of the turret behind that, which is 152 millimeters, also overlapped by this little shield here. So the lower part of the turret right here is very, very thick, very, very tough to penetrate. The upper part, you can get through this. Kind of right next to the gun, that's doable. 152 millimeters, you can do that with a lot of guns. I find that most of the time when I get knocked down this tank, it's due to my turret getting penetrated. And it's usually by tanks that have the penetration to do it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense when I say it that way, but things like IS-2 and King Tigers, those are generally the ones that give you issues with this tank. Just because they can penetrate your turret face, and you really can't angle your turret face. Because if you try and angle your turret face right, you flatten out this part of your armor. Sure, you just made this pretty thick, but now this is getting flatter, and this is getting flatter. Same thing on the other side. This is getting flatter, this is getting flatter. So the way the turret's shaped doesn't really lend itself to being angled, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Now the hull, on the other hand, angle away. This tank is designed to angle its hull. Pulling off an angle, I don't know, something like this. Look at this front plate. It's almost 200 millimeters thick. That's pretty cool. This lower plate, over 200 millimeters. The side armor is 95 millimeters. At its thinnest, it's about 180 or so millimeters right here. All the way, stretching all the way back to a billion. No, like 300. So maybe if you shrink the angle just a little bit, you can get this armor to be about 200 and this to be about 200. You've just presented 200 millimeters of armor on the hull of the tank, and guns at this tank's tier just will not penetrate that. And most tanks, even at higher tier, like a King Tiger, might struggle to pen this angled side armor because it is angled. It's going to have some added benefit just from being angled armor. You also got these little track sections, which is kind of cool. So, the hull armor is really good. 95 millimeters on the side, that's can be enough to still cause problems for a lot of tanks, right? You have this, and then behind it you have an additional 82 millimeters. Sadly, it's not overlapped by this. This is actually the side armor of the tank, but it would be nice if that was overlapped, but it isn't. You will also notice the tracks are massive. These tracks eat up shells. It's good to use these tracks to kind of eat up shells for you. And there's another interesting design feature, because I can't, no, I'll save it to the x-ray. I'll save it to the x-ray. We'll talk about that. But side of the turret, 95 millimeters. All right, whatever. 101 at the back of the turret. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. You got this big hole that's 95. Back of the tank, 51. If they're shooting you in the back, usually they're going to kill you. So not much you can do about that. But the armor profile of this tank is actually sneakily really good. And it really benefits from being angled. The turret less so, but the side and the front armor, all day angled. When you're straight on against someone like this, they can penetrate this plate, right? When you're angled like this, they have no hope of penetrating that plate. And honestly, like this, they really don't have a hope of penetrating your side armor. So this is kind of the move right here. Now, I'd mentioned these two plates right here, the ones in the tracks. Those are kind of important. Notice where a majority of the ammo is stored, in line with the tracks. Just so happens that those 152 millimeter plates sit right in front of the ammo. So if you're looking at this thing straight on, don't bother trying to shoot for the ammo. There's a 152 millimeter plate behind the tracks in there that's going to protect this ammo supply. You do have some amount of ammo in the main body of the tank, but if you're angled, how are they going to hit that? They just can't. In addition, there's no ammo in the turret, so you're not going to blow this tank up through the turret. Now, these three crew members are sitting really close together, and the gun breach is massive. So, a penetrating shot into the turret usually kills or maims all three of these guys and wrecks the gun breach. But that's kind of to be expected. They're cramped in there pretty good. But you know, you have your machine gunner sitting here. You got your driver here. Aimer or gunner, loader, commander. All the engine machinery is in the back. You got transmission engine, fuel tanks, radiator, all that good stuff. Got the radio back here. That's cool, right? But yeah, the interior layout of this tank is pretty cool. mainly because the ammo is really well protected behind the side skirts and also these two 152mm plates. It's like kind of a hidden gem with this tank. These can really help you out. But that's enough about the armor. It's good. It's at its tier. This armor is nigh impregnable if played correctly. If you're side on to the enemy like this, a Tiger is going to chew you up. T-34-85 is going to chew you up. All types of stuff is going to chew you up. Angled like this, no hope. A Tiger has zero hope of killing you unless he gets some good shots onto your gun mantlet. But if you're returning fire, no way. And he has to get kind of lucky. So that's not going to happen. But the real thing that drives this tank forward is the gun. Has this 76.2mm QF 17-pounder gun. This has got to be one of my favorite guns in the game. I mean, historically, it was a very powerful gun. Very good armor-piercing characteristics. Very big punch. And in War Thunder, I was worried that these British tanks would have, with their sub-caliber guns, this 76.2, that's what a T-34 1941 has. We got Tigers running around with 88s. We got IS-2 running around with 122mm. I was worried this thing wouldn't have the punching power. It's got some punch to it, that's for sure. Let's pull up the ammunition types. Obviously, Black Prince is a premium, so all this comes unlocked, which is super cool. But the base ammunition, it's good enough. 7.7 kilogram, 883 meters per second muzzle velocity, 160 millimeters penetration at 10 meters, 133 at 500, 96 at 1500, 86 at 2000. Like, that's cool. But you won't use this because this is what you would have unlocked first. Well, there's no reason to mess around with this. AP, not AP, HE shell. I mean, maybe against AAA trucks, but it's a 76.2 millimeter HE shell. Not a lot is going on with there. You have the Shot Mark IV. Okay, we're getting a little better. It has it's a capped shell. It's kind of got more of these more boxy shells, so it can cause some serious damage on the inside. And it's, 7.7 kilogram, 883 meters per second muzzle velocity. All the armor-piercing shells have very similar characteristics. The penetration just gets a little better. 165 millimeters penetration at 10 meters, 138 at 500, 94 at 1500, and 81 at 2000. So that's pretty cool. This is the shell you're going to spam all day long when you're driving this tank. Like I said, its characteristics, 7.7 kilogram, 883 meters per second muzzle velocity, that's all the same, but it has the best penetration of the bunch. And with this AP shell, you don't really care if you overpenetrate, honestly. The shell's going to fragment. It seems to have a pretty good fragmentation spread, and it just causes lots and lots of problems for things like T-34s and Tigers. Tigers don't like it. It really causes issues for a lot of tanks. Penetration, 171 millimeters at 10 meters, 156 at 500, 130 at 1500, 120 at 2000. That's the big reason I like this shell. Maintains that penetration out to 2000 meters. You can really hammer some dudes with 120 millimeters penetration, like all day. It's a really well performing shell, and it just obliterates stuff. I've had a lot of just, oh, I see you, bam, you're dead type situations where I don't expect this gun to one-shot him, but it penetrates, it one-shots the tank. What can you do? You also have the option of this Sabo shell. Now, this shell is kind of interesting. I don't find myself needing it all the time. I generally use it when I'm engaging at long range, and the reason is the muzzle velocity. It's a 3.5 kilogram shell, 1203 meters per second muzzle velocity. Penetration's really good though. 228 millimeters at 10 meters, 207 at 500, 159 at 1500, and 134 at 2000. At long range, it has similar penetration characteristics as the previous AP shot I just talked about, the Mark 8. However, it's traveling much faster. So it's much easier to get on target. And honestly, I feel like it has like a break point where its penetration is high at medium to close range, and you can a lot of times just send this shell clean through the angled side of a Tiger, clean through the front plate of a Panther. There's really nothing that this tank runs into that this Sabo shell will not penetrate. And you're firing a lot of these things. I mean, I have a halfway decent crew, and my reload rate is 6.3 seconds. You know, and that's the crew I've been able to put together while I've been playing this tank. If you have a very good, if you've been hoarding British crew points, you could have a much, much better crew and really get that reload down. So yeah, ammunition, this Sabo and this shot Mark 8, those are the two you want. You want to spam this Mark 8, and when it doesn't get the job done, send them a Sabo. That's kind of the way to do it. You get 89 rounds of ammunition. I've been running 40 and 49, 40 AP, 49 Sabo, but the only reason I did that is because there was a battle where it was on Kursk, and I decided to run more Sabo either before that or after that, just because long-range battles I like to shoot Sabo a lot, and I just don't want to run out just in case. I've never run out of either ammunition during a game. It's difficult to fire 40 shots, even if the rate of fire is really, really high. But, you know, it's always good to be prepared. You know, never a bad thing having a bunch of extra shells laying around. The benefit of the Black Prince I didn't mention, this shot Mark 8 costs 90 silver lions. The Sabo, 280. It's cheap as chips. Like, this is pretty good. Like, I'm fine with that. You're going to make a lot of money with this tank, just because the ammunition really isn't that expensive. Now, visibility, 100%. I haven't really decided what a good number here is. I imagine lower is better. It's too new. It's too new. I need to see the difference, basically. I need to kind of experience a situation where having the better visibility made a difference. So far, I haven't. So, I'm not really going to talk about that stat. But as a quick overview, Black Prince, it's slow. It's really slow. It's the slowest. It's one of the slowest tanks in the game. I think it's probably second to the T95. How fast is T95? T95 goes 12.8, so it's faster than T95, but not by a lot. It's certainly not by a lot. The gun, fantastic. What the heck happened to my tank? He got like camoed a little bit. It's kind of goofy on the barrel. That wasn't like that before, was it? Didn't think so. The gun is fantastic. The armor profile is tremendous at its tier. And when it goes above its tier, up to like 6.7 or so, at the very top of its battle rating spread, it can start to show some wear and maybe not protect you as well as it should, but it gets the job done. This tank can deal with anything it faces. It's just how well it deals with it. And like Tiger 2s are going to give you a problem, but they're at 6.7, you're at 5.7. You know, same way Tigers can struggle with IS-2 model 1944s. Same thing. But this tank absolutely dominates its own tier. Round 6.0 and down, just dominates. 6.3 really and down, just dominates. And I was kind of surprised when they dropped it from 6.0 to 5.7. I didn't feel like it needed it, but you know, they did it, and it's now at 5.7, and it's gonna be 0.3 battle rating better. So, but anyway, let's watch some replay, shall we? So I want to apologize ahead of time on account of this replay being muted. Now, the reason it's muted is I didn't mute my microphone when I was playing, and there's just too much background noise. It's a really good replay. It really shows what I wanted to show with at least one of the replays in this tank review, so I want to include it, but it does make me sad that you can't hear the game sounds. But we're going to keep trooping on, stiff upper lip. We are driving a British tank, however, you know, as we know. So this is Kursk, realistic battle, obviously driving the Black Prince, and I'm going to do things that I feel like heavy tanks should be doing. Once I decide to stop sending long-range fire down towards the enemy, I'm going to generally push my way to A, and then kind of just sort of snake my way across the rest of Kursk. Now, the Black Prince really benefit. Now, this is a game, let's just preface it all. Bam. Long-range penetration on a Tiger. That was clean through his front plate with the AP shell. Notice I did just take a damaging hit, but it was just my tracks, so I do not care. Kill assist on the Tiger, that's cool. See, this gun is just going to either stick with or outperform the other guns at its battle rating. It's a really good gun. But as I was saying, this tank, if you can advance angled, so notice if you can look on the ragdoll down there and see how my tank's angled. I have zero fear of these guys at this range. They can't penetrate my turret face. You know, they have no hope of penetrating my side armor. They can blow my tracks off all day. I don't care. You know, there's nothing to fear here. Now, as soon as my tracks are back up, I should probably think about sort of advancing towards A, which I'm going to start doing. But I can basically push my way entirely across this field. And as long as the enemies stay on that ridge, they are not going to cause me any problems. Now you'll notice I just shot a Panther and my shell bounced off his upper glacis. So, swap to Sabo, and it looks like the angle's a little too much. So I'm going to try and go for like a transmission shot here. But oof, that was a little goofy. I guess it went in between his tracks a little bit. He's backing down. Got another tank spotted. And I'm just basically sending rapid fire, long range support down towards the enemy ridge and backing people up. Oh, there's somebody. It's probably a little bit short. The difference between the Sabo and AP is something you have to get used to, kind of. I know there's a guy right there. Looks like that shell missed, but there's going to be a couple guys hanging out right over here, and they're starting to put pressure on the cap circle that we're trying to take, so obviously we need to put an end to that. Shell goes in, KV-85, no chance. He's toast. See, but that's what I'm saying. This tank really has a good amount of punch. If you penetrate the upper glacis of an enemy tank, most of the time you'll be rewarded with some type of either severe damage or just knock the tank out. Oh, that's an enemy. Bam. Bounced off the side. That's an extreme angle. I don't think there were many guns in the game that were going to penetrate that. That's an allied tank. I send that shell through the smoke. Couldn't see him. Difficult to hit. Now there is a AAA guy who's just kind of sending rounds over. There's also like, I think it's a Panther. I think it's that Panther from earlier. Oh, that was a Panzer IV-J. He's dead now. Got an assist on the T-34-85. There really isn't anything I fear on this battlefield right now. I can basically just sit out in the open, fire with impunity. Oh, got his commander. That's cool. I need to like kind of loop shells over this hill and get onto his front plate. There you go. Penetration through his front plate, right above the tracks. I want to try and keep these shells on him. But I do need to advance. I'm getting distracted way too easily because I'm just shooting at tanks. So I'm going to start moving forward and just move up to help our guys contest the cap. Kind of what I'm doing here is preventing the enemy team from basically providing any supporting fire at all. Now you will notice that right here I've stopped moving, stopped firing. My keyboard was actually running out of battery, so I plugged it in. But I don't care because I can get up and do things like that when I'm sitting in an impenetrable hulk of metal. Oh, Panther, you want to have a go? Okay, we'll just send a shell right through your optical devices. Another hit. Trying to get this guy. Really would like to get these Panthers off our flank. So I can move up. There it is. Right through the base of the turret. Time to keep moving forward. Now, the Black Prince, while it is very slow, advances very well. And that's primarily because if you can advance in an angled pattern, kind of like this, where your armor's always at its optimal angle from the perceived area where the threat might come from, then you're going to have a good day. It's going to be very difficult for them to penetrate you at long range, and you can kind of just hang out. You know, it's like I got up and I plugged in my keyboard. I have a wireless keyboard. No problems. And then you have the quick firing gun with all the punch you need to knock out these tanks even at long range. It can be difficult with the new zoom levels to get some of the shells on target, like exactly where you want them. And there is some variability with the gun. But all in all, the gun performs really well. And it's kind of exactly what you would hope for with a heavy tank. It has like a medium tank's brawling gun on a heavy tank chassis. A real heavy tank chassis. Because there are plenty of tanks in the game that are heavy tanks but don't have the armor, or or maybe they have the armor but not really the gun. And I'm looking at the KV-1 L11, for example, has a really great armor profile for its tier. But yeah, that's cool and all. But it's a 76mm gun with not that much penetration. It's great for knocking out German tanks, but the second you start shooting at anything else, it doesn't get the job done. It's just not that good. But this replay, the whole goal was to demonstrate this tank engaging targets at long range. You get it done. Honestly, I think this tank excels more at long range combat just because you can angle yourself against all the threats because they're all coming from the general same like kind of angle of attack, and you can prepare for all of them. And you can just keep the gun firing. You'll be able to shoot faster than them. A lot of times when people are engaging at long range, they don't pull back behind cover because like they're waiting to see how their shot falls, and then they're adjusting, and then whatever. Well, that's perfect because I'll probably send 2 shells for every shell they send back. And that's kind of the goal of this tank, is you want to angle yourself in such a way that the enemy can't hurt you, and then just keep the gun firing, just keep the gun singing, because I think the biggest thing to do with this tank is get that rate of fire up, like get that reload rate down so that you're sending the shells faster than anyone else can, and you can just keep it going, because that's really where this tank makes its money. I've had games, I had a simulator battle where I was confronted with 3 enemy Tigers and destroyed them all very quickly. Now, I had surprised them, so there were 3 of them. 2 were looking the wrong way, 1 was looking generally in my direction. I got hit twice and killed all 3 tanks. Yeah, it's now granted the Tigers were at a severe disadvantage. I was prepared, I was angled, and honestly they didn't really stand much of a chance because it just wasn't a fair fight really, because this tank's gun just fires so fast and it has good enough penetration, good enough handling where you can just knock out a bunch of tanks really quick. The key is to just kind of know your limits, I think, in this tank. You don't want to get yourself in a position where you're too far forward, you're way too advanced, and you have no support, because this tank is prone to being circled. Doesn't move that fast. It does have, the turret traverse is good enough, but it doesn't necessarily prevent you from some guy getting up alongside you while you're reloading. Now you'll notice that AP shell cranked off the side of the tank. I'm moving and then stopping to fire because I don't really fear this guy, but I don't want to give him a super easy target. There we go. Bounce it off the gun mantlet. Stop. Aim that one a little better. Still not penetrating. Switch to the Sabo. I think it would have penetrated if I had gotten it into the... there we go. All day. Look at that spread. That was nice. I think it would have penetrated if I'd gotten it maybe onto his turret or something like that, but I didn't. Right into the machine gun port, and there's the assist. And that's all cool. Tiger and a T-34-85. That's not bad. Now, for the remainder of this game, I'm actually just going to get bombed and then respawn, and that's it. So we're going to skip forward a little bit, if you don't mind. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead, and their ticker's going to run down. We're going to win. 5 kills, 5 assists, 1 death due to bombs. And I'm going to come out of it with a pretty healthy reward because it's premium. And it's really good. Gets lots of kills. So, all pretty cool. Now, let us move on to the next replay. Now, this replay is brought to us by Bigyin, if I'm saying that right. Bigyin. I'll call you Biggie. Let's call him Biggie. I like Biggie. Or Bigyin. Let's call him Bigyin. Bigyin's closer. Okay. So Bigyin's driving the Black Prince. This is a subscriber submission. And this replay really captured what I wanted the second replay of this tank review to capture. And that's this tank engaging targets at a much closer distance, at kind of knife fight range. Now, this replay does take a little bit of time to wind up, but that's primarily because this tank is so goddamn slow. It takes forever to get from point A to point B, and there's not really much you can do about it. you got to drive forward, and the point is you generally want to drive to where the combat is likely to be the thickest, just because you won't be able to shift. Like, you aren't going to be able to get to the other side of the map, really. Most of the time when I'm driving this tank, I just go ahead and go straight to the key spots I know are going to be important for the battle. For example, on this map, the cap is going to be very important. I think I would do something very similar to what Bigyin is doing. Because the key on this map isn't all that big, but the cap is kind of in a goofy spot, so you need to push forward and kind of be aggressive and take control of that area and then drive them out of the city. Something else I've found successful is to advance on the outside of these like warehouses and basically cut them off. Now, something else to note, in this replay, some of the sounds don't come through properly, but that's the fault of the replay system, not really anything else. And it's interesting because in this situation, the stature of the tank kind of gets in the way. Black Prince isn't all that tall. And and the other thing I wanted to mention, all the markers you see above the tanks, this is obviously a replay. This is a realistic battle, and I have those on for my benefit and for y'all's benefit, not really for any other reason. It helps me understand what's going on, and I'm sure it helps everyone else kind of see what was happening. Now, throughout the course of this replay, I kept getting the thought that this gun was kind of misbehaving for Bigyin. And the reason I say that is I've had more success with like kind of one-shotting like T-30-45s and things like that. He's going to put a couple more rounds in the tanks than I would be used to doing. But the point, I think the reason is that he was actually going for a lot of very intelligent shots. For example, on T-30-45s that are close to him, you'll notice a lot of time he goes for the engine, which is a good idea because if he's facing the enemy, they aren't going to be able to penetrate his front, so why not knock out their engine so they can't get around you, which is where they'll be able to take advantage of you. So, I think it was honestly just good play. But the cap is being contested, and it's time to sort of push people out. The Black Prince doesn't get anywhere quick, so it might be a good idea to push forward and kind of aggressively oust the enemy tanks from this part of the city. Now, something to note, I'm not showing a simulator battle. That's not for lack of trying. I had some simulator clips that were, I don't know, maybe stuff I wanted to show. Most of them where I just didn't see that many tanks. The tanks I saw, I killed. I just didn't see that many, so it was kind of like, man, that was kind of boring. But something to note is that the Black Prince's gun sight in simulator is actually set to the right of the gun when you're looking from behind the tank. You can actually see it on the gun mantlet. You see that hole in the gun mantlet on the other side of the gun, on the right. Well, if you're looking at the gun mantlet, like you're standing in front of the tank, the left-hand side is where the gun sight is. The right-hand side is where the machine gun is. So something to keep in mind when you're shooting in simulator is that the shell's going to come in from your left rather than straight down the middle. I actually found that kind of hard to get used to, and I still kind of mess up shots where maybe my first shell doesn't go exactly where I wanted it, because maybe it's like a little bit to the left because I didn't account for the, because it's kind of like when you're close to the target it becomes more obvious, but the shell doesn't, it's like it has to get to where you're aiming it, and it's coming from the left, so no, sometimes it hits the target more to the left than you wanted, but it's just kind of how it's set up. Not much you can do. That T-30-45 is trying to make a break for it, that's for sure. So, yeah, something to keep in mind when you're playing sim in this tank. Now, for a lot of heavy tanks, this would be a problem. You have two enemy tanks, a T-34-57 and a T-34-85. They have an obstacle in between them, but you know what? Right here, just plant the front of your tank into that hill and let them come around. You'll be angled, and you'll be able to deal with them. T-34-85 makes a break for it, bounces a shell because you can't hurt a Black Prince. Are you kidding me? And then, you know, he's going to have a rough day. Also notice Bigyin's ammo loadout. He's carrying quite a bit of AP, a little bit of HE, which is perfectly acceptable, and a decent supply of Sabo, which I think is probably the most optimal loadout. I think the HE is probably a little unnecessary, but I can think of situations where an HE shell would be helpful. So certainly nothing against. This tank doesn't have ammo trouble. It doesn't run out of ammunition. So I can certainly understand swapping out a couple rounds for some good old HE, just to help you take care of those kind of squishier targets that your AP shells are just going to overpenetrate. But now Bigyin's actually going to move around, go around to the right here, and continue pushing towards the enemy spawn. Now, no one owns the cap, which is fine. As long as the enemy don't own it, it's okay. Oop. T-34 of some nature. Looks like a 57. He does have a nasty little gun, but he's not going to be able to knock out a Churchill Black Prince in one go. His first shell bounces. It looks like that shell might have hit him, might have gone off the mound in front of him, but next shell goes in for sure. This guy's toast. Just very casually, coup de grace, coup de gras, and just continue to push forward. That's what this tank does really well, is a very controlled advance. This isn't a tank you want to go guns blazing and just kind of go as fast as you can across to the enemy position. You kind of want to be methodical with it. You want to advance, but you don't want to go so fast that you get out of control. Which isn't hard not going fast in this tank on account of it being really, 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 really slow. Something I want to test that I haven't been able to test, though. I have yet to be hit by an SU-152 in this tank. In theory, if you're angled, or if you're broadside, it shouldn't kill you. However, if you're facing him straight up, I think it will kill you, because the explosion's going to go down into the area in front of the gun mantlet, which has crew members in it. So I think that might be a little bit of a problem. But that's the case with a lot of tanks. Like the Tiger, for example. Tiger 1 doesn't get penetrated by the shell. It gets kind of as a result of a 152mm HE shell exploding on the front of its tank. On the front of the tank, it causes the explosion to send shrapnel down into the crew compartment, kill some crew, and cause some serious problems. And something really annoying is happening. Like every maybe 30 seconds, my video on my preview freezes, which is very sad. I always have to stop the voiceover recording, and then I have to restart it so that I can see what's happening, which is sad, but I'll live. T-34-85 making a blitz, and just remember, just angle the tank and put the next shell in. T-34-85, I'm not sure. I think if you're angled, the T-34-85 cannot kill you. The best way he'd kill you is knock your gun out and you don't realize it and blow your crew up with an exploding breach. I think that's about it. Now from the side, they can put one, if you're perpendicular with him, he'll just put one right through your side armor, detonate your ammo rack, cause you some serious problems. But when you're angled, there's a very small chance of that happening. Now this T-34, it looks like a STZ, one of these heavily armored T-34s. This guy doesn't look like he quite knew what was happening. I think he had no idea what was about to rock his world. But good doink. Sucks for that guy. Oop, that's a bomb. Doesn't look like it caused any damage to our good friend Bigyin here. And it is important to know, you can't see it on the screen, but he's actually taken 0 internal damage so far. So his crew are just in there sipping away on tea or whatever the hell they're doing, and having a grand old time, just fighting off the Russian hordes. Now this T-34-85 is going to try and be sneaky, and fighting at this close range is difficult. Why did he shoot that T-34 though? That made no sense. It's difficult because this tank doesn't move very quickly, and it's difficult to kind of swing this tank around and kind of get it on target, you know. Now Bigyin realizes exactly what's happening. He knows his T-34 is making a break around him. But he's angled the tank. He puts a shell in. Now, granted, the ass of this tank is not that well armored, so it's more difficult to angle it, obviously. But hey, this guy's burning. This guy's in a lot of trouble. Now, it looks like he's going for a cannon breach shot there, some type of turret, just disabling the turret somehow. But this next shot, he's just going to plant right into the side of the tank, cause him some serious problems, ultimately knocking out his tank. Now, but his fight isn't over. You'll notice he did lose the little kind of tarp that goes over the front of the tank, and you can see the weird-looking gun mantlet under it. That extra shield on the bottom can actually get a lot of people confused, where I've had King Tigers at very close range shoot the lower part of my gun mantlet and just bounce. Because it's, I mean, we already, as I discussed previously, there's like 3 pieces of armor there. You know, that's a serious piece of hardware right there. There are very few guns in the game that'll get through that. Now, on the other hand, the upper part of the gun, the turret, that's easy. That's a no-brainer. You can penetrate that. Basically, the upper half of the gun mantlet is fair game. Now, it's important to note that Bigyin is the last tank on his team. There are 3 planes in the air, all of which are capable, looks like, of carrying bombs. So that's pretty good. But the enemy also still have a couple tanks on their roster. There's T-34-85 that he's starting to nail. And it looks like there's going to be just a couple others, some flak trucks, some other random stuff. Ooh, that looked like it hurt. Looks like the bomber showed up. But he's going to have to try and find the enemy. Now, he's the last tank, so he's going to have to be the guy to cap it to win. Or, I mean, kill everybody, but most likely he's going to have to try and cap. And you have to feel bad for this KV-1. I don't think the KV-1 can physically penetrate any part of this tank. No, okay, I take that back. He can penetrate the very rear of the tank, where the engine is. That's about it. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever been circled by a KV-1. I don't think that's ever happened. Probably in the history of ever. So he's perfectly safe. This KV-1 has really 0 chance in this fight. This is just kind of, so I guess to use a jingle phrase, he's kicking puppies right now. He really is. I would have been I'd probably be tempted just to drive around the edge of this factory, this little, or whatever this is, this pavilion, or what is it called? The word escapes me right now. Warehouse, this blown up warehouse, and just put one right through his upper glacis. Even if it's angled, I don't think he can stop. I don't think he can save himself. But eventually, all in due time, he's going to knock him out. Took a hit there. Wonder from what? I think, oh, sneaky. Sneaky. T-34-85E. A dangerous enough tank. He probably could have caused some serious damage right there. But he brings the gun around, puts one in the front of the turret. Never a bad shot. Hitting the front of a turret of a Russian tank, they're relatively cramped on the inside. There we go. No problem. They're relatively cramped on the inside, so it's really not an issue. If you penetrate the tank, it's likely to cause some type of damage inside. And it looked like at this point that Bigyin was having some trouble deciding what to do. Should I go back and cap? Should I do something else? Which is fine, because when you're driving a slow tank, it is very easy to ponder things like the meaning of life and such things. Because you just have so much time to think. Imagine if you were driving a Hellcat. You have so little time to think. You're always just spinning around and doing crazy stuff. But Churchill, well, the Black Prince rather, very methodical. He's actually going to come under fire, I believe, from T-34-85. He's going to have to turn and deal with. Or else he's going to realize they're there. Either one. And there's actually 2 of them. There's the one immediately to his front, and then there's one on the other side of that warehouse. Now, the one to the immediate front is the biggest threat. I mean, of these guys, he's most likely to circle him, basically. And it looks like he's going to try and do just that, but he gets the shell off, sets him on fire. That's definitely going to be a problem for his engine. And now he can just clean this guy up. It's going to take probably another one. Artie coming in. That's not the best, but it's not the worst either. Bam. Artie's not very accurate nowadays, so. Now that other T-30-45, it looks like his first shell went into the turret, so he likely disabled something, got a gunner, probably got his gunner, honestly. Whatever it was, he pulled back and didn't push. And that gives Bigyin the opportunity to come up over the hill, use his superior armor to not get punished for showing his belly, and just kind of roll on. He set that guy on fire, so he's kind of toast. Another shell goes in. Su-76M, I mean, I guess, beware. If he gets around the back, he can cause some problems, but unlikely. Now that T-34-85 is burning the second time. Looks like he's not going to put that fire out. Looks like he's just running forward. No hope of hurting him at this range. With this orientation, no, it's just not going to happen. But yeah, the rest of the battle kind of unfolds exactly as you expect. Bigyin's going to kill this T-30-45. He's going to kill the Su-76. He's going to mosey his way on towards the cap. The bombers are going to bomb some stuff, and they're going to win. So that's pretty cool. And he's kind of showing us how to get it done on a city map. This tank can do just as well in a city as it can at long range. We'll watch him put this Su-76 out of his misery, and then we'll move on to the final opinion. It's about time. This has been a nice long tank review. Haven't done one in a while, so I definitely owed a nice long one. But here we go. Oh, Su-76. You poor, poor bastard. There you go. Good night. Let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? Alright, so opinion time. What do I think of the Black Prince? So I think the Black Prince is one of the best premiums in the game. For a rank 4 premium, it just dominates its tier. It's been a while since, I don't think there's another premium that provides this combination of armor and firepower, like that good of a gun on that good of an armor chassis. I don't think there's another premium like it. It is slow. If you don't like slow tanks, you won't like the Black Prince. It's really slow, but the thing is if you can get over the fact that it's slow, this tank gets it done. I've always said in the past that I value speed higher than armor, because a lot of times the armor can be defeated in its own battle rating. So if everything that's shooting at you can defeat your armor, why not just be fast? It's better. Well, the thing is that most things at the Black Prince's battle rating can't defeat its armor when played properly. So I'm okay with being slow. If I can just march steadily across the field at Kursk, bouncing shots all the way, getting tracked all day long, because that will happen because their tracks are huge, I'm okay with that because I have a great gun. They're not going to damage me, and I can just shoot away. Plenty of battles where I've just advanced. I just kind of go forward. You know, the faster tanks outpace me, but I always find that eventually you just sort of grind the enemy out, and then those Hellcats, those other tanks, just kind of burst through and just run everybody down and win. So Black Prince, it's really good. I really like it. This is a very me. So this is a very me sort of tank. I'm down with this. The 17-pounder gun's amazing. The fact that the Scorpion and the Achilles both have this gun with similar ammunition is kind of absurd to me. The gun is fantastic. The armor on this tank, one of the best armor profiles in the game, in my opinion. The turret, I wish the turret was maybe a little bit thicker, or maybe the sides of the turret was thicker so that you could angle better or something like that. But, you know, kind of what can you do? You know, you can always nitpick. But this is a really good tank. I think it's probably the best premium. And when the British tech tree comes in, the British ground force tech tree comes in, this is the tank I'm going to play the shit out of to get all the, you know, goodies, basically. This is going to be my... When I get to the point where I have a 5 point, I start seeing 5.7 battle rating tanks, this tank's going to immediately come into my lineup, and I'm going to play a lot of Black Prince. I'll play a lot of Black Prince anyway because it's a good tank. So in my opinion, it's dope. It's really good. I think it's certainly worth, if you wanted to buy a rank 4 premium for fun, or maybe in anticipation, the Black Prince, that's where it's at. If this thing ever went on sale, do it immediately. It won't go on sale though. It's too good. But anyway, to wrap up, it's a good tank. It really is. So yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to put them down in the comment section. And yeah, thanks for watching. I've been Corny Swiss, and I'll see you next time.